Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Canadians Abroad. I'm your host for today, Josh Deming. I will be joined by my colleague, Alex Gangue-Ruzic, and today we have plenty to discuss because our Canadians are balling out abroad right now. Alphonso Davies, Jonathan David, Ike Ugbo, Derek Cornelius, and more are all having great moments right now. So hopefully you guys are excited, and if you are, let's get into the episode now. We have some Canadian men's national team stars balling out in Europe at the moment, and it is the big guns. This is what you want to see as a Canadian fan. Over the weekend, Alphonso Davies picked up another assist, assisting Harry Kane for the second time, and this is where Davies at his best. He started off the season right now from the left back position, 3 assists in 2 matches. Jonathan David, despite his side not getting the result, got another goal. It was a very nice finish as well. 2 goals in 3 matches for him. Buchanan did not play over the weekend, but he's starting this season with Club Bruges. He's playing very well. 4 matches, 2 goals from the right back area. I mean, this is what you want to see, isn't it, Alex?
That's absolutely what you want to see from your big guns because they kind of set the tone a lot for a lot of these players, right? Especially maybe, the rest of the players on the roster. They're at the national team level, you're pushing to be like your stars. You want to play at the level of your stars. And, when your best players are doing well at, bigger clubs, bigger leagues, putting in those performances, it's huge. And especially you look at what's going on with the men's national team, all of a sudden a new coach, which we'll get into. You look at some of all that turmoil, just seeing the players just kind of erase that out their brains, just focus on their clubs and do well. Hopefully that can translate to say when things are finally back together, they're in the national team setup, that this form can carry over and bring a bit of those good vibes back, some good energy, some good just overall level, push the level of the squad. So I think it's absolutely key. We have to remember it's a big year. You got a Copa America potentially coming up next year. Of course, you got to qualify for it first, which is another big step. And that Canada's chances are only going to be greatly improved if their stars perform well, and they're doing a good job of that at the club level.
Yeah, it's not guaranteed. I mean, Davies, we know he's been thriving for Bayern for a while now, but he's had his injury concerns. To start off this season, he looks very fit, and he's putting up numbers at the beginning of the season that he's never done before, which is exactly what you want to see. JD has been pretty consistent with scoring goals. We know that. And Buchanan as well. He's been playing all over the park at Club Bruges ever since he went to Belgium. Left wing back, right wing back, winger, like he's been all over the place. It's seeming like he's settling into a very advanced right back role, which is great as well. But on top of the big guns actually putting up these numbers, we also have some depth players really thriving as well. And under the radar, Ike Ugbo with an incredible start to the season for Cardiff City. He has 3 goals. He scored over the weekend with a nice finish, 1 assist in 4 matches. This is fantastic for him because, again, if Kyle Larin, David maybe aren't scoring, if you just want someone to come off the bench who's confident in scoring, Ugbo could be your guy.
Yeah, and based on Kyle Larin's maybe slow start to life in Mallorca, maybe Ike Ugbo can come in and really push for minutes. And as a striker, it's good to see just him in form. I think it's been a bit fascinating, follow Ugbo's start to his Cardiff tenure. 3 goals, 1 assist in 4 matches is perfect for a striker. And I think it's good because I don't think he's quite been at his best. He has another level to hit. He's been a bit quiet in some games. He's maybe faded out a bit more than you'd like to see. He's someone who can get involved, hold up the ball, and do all those things. And the fact that he's been a bit quiet is kind of nice in a sense because he's still scoring, he's still doing his job, and he has another level to hit, and hopefully he can find it for Cardiff. It was a bit strange to see him play on the wing this weekend. I don't know if that was the best utilization of his skills. He's best leading the line, playing centrally, disrupting, but the finish itself was very well taken. Ball falls to him on his left, just slams it home into the roof of the net. That was a confident finish, and hopefully he can build off this because it'll certainly help him at club level. We do have to remember he's on loan to Cardiff, and certainly will help him a lot for the national team.
Ike Ugbo is a very good finisher, and I was going to bring up this point, so I'm glad that you did. We saw this at Troyes a little bit where he kind of got pushed out wide, and he's very ineffective out there. That's not where you're going to see him at his best. He can lead the line as a lone striker. He can play in a dual striker in front too. And he's a very good finisher in front of goal. That's what you want. But when he gets pushed out wide a little bit, you don't really play to his strengths. So, Alex, are you a little bit nervous that, he could find himself kind of stuck on the wing once again in that kind of situation?
Yeah, we'll see if this was a bit of a one-off. Ugbo's a bit of an interesting one because he's someone where you can watch him sometimes, and look, sometimes it looks like he's not maybe working the hardest, or at least he's not like someone who's, some players, they visibly look like they're putting in a shift. Like maybe they're of course you have to look at the metrics and all that, but some guys just look like they're sweating and running. And look, Ugbo is not that kind of striker. He's someone who's a bit more efficient. He's more, he's going to press when the moment's right. He's going to press hard when the moment's right. But if it's not right, he's not going to be wasting his energy. And, maybe I wonder if sometimes moments like that, coaches feel like, he's not active enough up front. You kind of want to push him out wide and get him a bit more involved in the game. But look, I think we've seen it at Troyes. We've seen it now in, this one game with Cardiff. Leave him up front. Let him, maybe sometimes he'll drift in and out of games, but as you see, he can pop up and score goals. And if you get him those touches, if you allow him to, build up back to goal, he is very tricky in terms of making those little flicks and then turning off and making a run in behind. And I just don't think you get that out wide. So hopefully Ugbo can get back to his more natural central position. Because look, I get it. Sometimes you can watch Ugbo and, maybe he looks like someone who needs to get a bit more involved in the game, get out wide. But I think we've seen enough, evidence for him to know that keep him centrally and he will make things happen, even if, look, maybe he'll be quiet for 85 minutes of a game. But as we saw earlier in the year for Cardiff, sometimes all he needs is just one chance in the box. And that's what you want from your striker.
Centrally is absolutely where he needs to play. There's been moments I've seen as well where he's had a quiet game, maybe only get 15 touches, but he gets that opportunity at the top of the box and he can finish. And that is his biggest quality in my eyes. And I don't think he's really had an overly fair shake with the national team. I know the excitement when we found out that he was eligible for Canada, he came in, but like you mentioned, he's been battling with basically two of the best strikers in CONCACAF with Jonathan David and Kyle Larin. Does Larin start to the season concern you in any way? And if you were, I guess, Ugbo, would you look at it as an opportunity to maybe, hey, I can start alongside Jonathan David. I can be that number 9. David can play just a little bit behind me the way that he can. Because Kyle Larin has not started a match right now. He's been pretty ineffective coming off the bench from Mallorca, and his manager called him out for not being fit. So, Alex, are you a little concerned there?
Well, first of all, I am concerned about Larin because he is someone who, he needs to find form. And I think as you saw it last year with Valladolid, when he's in form, he just flies. We've seen it as well at Besiktas, but also he started last year slow with Bruges, and then you wonder, okay, you get a fresh start with Mallorca, grab it. This is not the start you want to be seeing from Kyle Larin. So first and foremost, I'd be concerned, but also from a Canadian perspective, I think you have to be pleased with Ugbo because, it was tough last year for Bruges because Larin, this was heading into a World Cup. You wanted Larin to be flying and in form, and maybe if he wasn't in form, he scores at that World Cup, for example. Now it's a bit of a different cycle, and it's something where if Larin's not going to be in form, if he's going to be, if he's fighting fitness, then Ugbo can step up and take his place. We've seen it. Ugbo is someone who's scored in, top 5 leagues before. He's scoring regularly at a good level in the championship. So I don't think it's as much of a concern from a Canadian's perspective. It's more from almost like a personal one with Larin, because you just want him to find form because he can be so fun to watch. And, the fans fell in love with him in Valladolid. You want the Mallorca fans to do the same. Well, you also want to have himself put himself in the best position to succeed, and then you want him to make the most of those opportunities. So hopefully Larin can clean this up. But look, if the struggles do continue, it is nice to look over at Ike Ugbo, be like, well, you're up next. And that's maybe a luxury that Canada didn't have heading into last year's World Cup. Larin wasn't in form. You're kind of like, well, you kind of play him through his slump, or you play Ugbo, and it ended up being play Larin through his slump, and that didn't go very well for him at the World Cup and around that time.
Yeah, I'm very concerned about Larin at the moment, to be honest. A lot of our stars are thriving or at least playing, and Larin's not. He's the odd man out, and it's surprising to me because we saw what he did in Turkey. He was, a very valuable player there. Went over to Club Brugge, wanted the Champions League, couldn't find a way to get in, and the confidence kind of got to him, and the opportunities, and maybe the attitude wasn't there. He got his move to La Liga completely. It was like a second chance, completely turned it around, and I would have expected that same type of attitude to go on. I mean, you were able to stay in La Liga, a league that you showed that you can score in. So to see you maybe show up not fit and, maybe not on the coach's good side right now is not a good thing. So we're going to have to wait to see how he basically battles it out. But Ugbo is right there waiting in the wings, like you said. And speaking of Canadian players that are waiting in the wings, I'm going to shift us over to Derek Cornelius. Alex, you and I love talking about Derek Cornelius. Let's be honest, but he scored over the weekend in a 3-1 win for Malmo, and he's playing in the middle of a back 3. And I'm bringing him up because Steven Vittoria's had a pretty rough start to this season. I mean, he's 36 years old. He can't stop age. It is what it is. But at some point, with a new manager coming in, these opportunities are going to be there. Maybe it is an Ugbo taking a Larin spot. Maybe it's Cornelius taking a Vittoria spot. But depending on how that new manager is going to play, a back 3 is the way I kind of see this national team lining up. And if Derek Cornelius can take that opportunity because he's thriving right now, you could see a back three of maybe a Cornelius, Kamal Miller out to the left, and an Alistair Johnson on the right.
Yeah, look, certainly Derek Cornelius has been a favored topic of ours on Canadians Abroad this year, but we can't help ourselves. He's just been that good, and it feels like it somehow continues to fly under the radar. And certainly the injury didn't help at the inopportune time. Canada sorely missed him. But Cornelius, again, it's like we've said, he's the center back of the future for Canada and can play in the middle of the back three. Who knows? Maybe with a coaching change at Canada, maybe they switch to a back four. He can play in a back four too. Either way, I think he's going to be a rock for Canada. And his play at Malmö is a huge reason why. I mean, this is a big club. It's a club pushing for a Swedish title. He's just been a rock. Another big win for them this week. He scores the opening goal. They end up winning 3-1. They win within punching distance of the title, just 3 points off first. And, they were, of course, leading early in the season. They kind of dipped when he got injured as well, kind of showing his importance to the team, that when he was out, that they kind of slipped a bit. Now that they're back winning games with him in the lineup, I mean, it speaks for itself. So for Canada, you talk a lot about the center back situation, who's going to start, who's going to replace Vittoria. Cornelius is right there, and I'm excited to see what he can do with a bigger opportunity. And I can only imagine what he could have done with the Gold Cup, with the Nations League. But I mean, looking forward, you can only imagine what he's going to do long term, because he's still young, he's still growing, and that's the most exciting thing about all this.
I mean, it's a new chapter. That's like we said. It's exciting. It's a new chapter. The Copa America is coming up, a World Cup. In a few years' time, you need a player around his profile to step up. I mean, much as we love Vittoria, realistically, he's not going to be the center back to lead us to the 2026 World Cup. So you need someone to kind of mold into that role now. And with the new manager coming in, now is now. This is the time to do it. And if you look across the depth pool of the center backs, there's no one really out there with the profile who can play in the middle of a back three. We know he can play in a back four, but again, hypothetically, if it is a back three, he's the guy, and he's been playing with so much swagger ever since he went to Europe. I love how calm he is on the ball. He can do that role alongside Kamal Miller and Alistair Johnson, like I said. But there's also a little Lucas McNaughton in there, who I think can maybe, you talk about back fours and just maybe having a righty in there. I know that we've talked about the amount of left-footed players that we have, but if McNaughton has got the opportunity to go in there as well, those are two very exciting profiles of players that hopefully can give us some depth in that area.
Yeah, and I think it's good, because I think it's twofold, because Cornelius stepping up and really becoming a potential leader, a potential, heart of a back three or a back four is key, because I think there's a lot of options who could support him nicely. I mean, first and foremost, Scott Kennedy is also finding his form in Austria, so you can always slot him in a back three. Of course, Kamal Miller as well, over at Miami. It's another option. You got Lucas McNaughton is a fascinating one, because he's looked very good in Nashville's back four, and he's good on the ball and in the air, which are two areas where Canada's wanted more out of their center backs. Joel Waterman has started to play in the heart of a back three for Montreal, and showing good comfort on the ball. So maybe even a pair of him and Cornelius, or a trio of him and Cornelius and someone else could work out. You got Kyle Hebert around. Maybe Moise Bombito hasn't had the greatest return from the Gold Cup, finding his feet with the second team, but we saw the potential that was there at the Gold Cup. There's options coming, emerging there, and I think it's huge, because if one of them, with a guy like Cornelius stepping up to be like a Vittoria-like replacement, a leader of the back three, a lot of these guys can just all slot in beside him. And I mean, Kamal Miller is also a key leader, so not to discount him there. Heck, Cornelius and Miller together, imagine being the third player beside them. That's your job, your lives made a lot easier by having two leaders like that. So I think Cornelius's emergence is huge, not just for himself, but you look at a lot of the options alongside them. I'm excited to see what a McNaughton could look like, a Waterman, et cetera, et cetera.
There was some massive news that dropped this week, as it was announced that John Herdman is leaving the Canadian men's national team and taking over at TFC. Herdman leaves the national team with a 36-8-14 record in 58 matches. He guided the Canadian men's national team to their very first World Cup in 36 years after topping the group in qualifying, which was very impressive. And he also made it to the final of the 2023 CONCACAF Nations League. Herdman's work with the national team, with both the women and the men, has been absolutely fantastic, and we're going to miss him.
Cool story for CF Montreal this weekend, as they picked up another win at home, another clean sheet as well, heading towards a bit of history in that regard. But they started 7 Canadians while doing so. And from a cool perspective, 6 Quebecois, as Jonathan Sirois, Samuel Piette, Nathan Saliba, Zachary Broguillard, Mathieu Chouanière, and Jules Anthony Vilsaint all started, as well as Joel Waterman, the seventh, the Langley native, to round out the trio. Great to see from Montreal, because in the past there's been criticism of maybe not playing enough academy products, enough younger players coming through the system, and to see them put so many local guys in the lineup will resonate very well with the fan base.
That is all the time we have for in the latest edition of Canadians Abroad. I really hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, be sure to tune in for next week's update.